Hello, my name's Ed Poole. I'm a member of the Green Party, and the Green Party has their national general executive elections this summer. And I've been interviewing candidates for deputy leader. Today, I have with me Chaz Warlow. Hi, Chaz.
Hi.
Do you just want to tell us a little bit about what your role is in the Green Party and what you at the moment?
Yeah, I'm a local councillor in Richmond upon Thames, which is in southwest London. I'm the deputy leader of the opposition there because we're in opposition. There are five of us out of a total of 54 councillors, so we're definitely in a minority, but we've been doing a lot of good work there to push the administration in the direction that we feel they should go. So I've been a councillor for the last 3 years. I live here in Richmond. I've got two daughters who are now grown up, and until fairly recently, I was working in the renewables sector. But I've also worked in other sectors in the past as well, and I've been involved in community energy projects and other grassroots environmental organisations, local organisations as well.
Why did you join the Green Party, and why do you think other people should?
I joined the Green Party because I had been involved in a lot of grassroots community activity previously, and even though that is really important and it does affect change, I felt after a while that I needed to actually get more politically engaged and join a party that would effectively get at some hands on the levers of power. And the Green Party is the only party for many, many years that I've ever voted for or had any real sympathy for. Um, and so it was a natural choice. I think the Green Party is the only political party that really understands the interrelatedness of all the elements of, say, climate, environment, society, and economic models. Um, and that's why we can look at things holistically. And that's why people should join the Green Party and vote for the Green Party, because we're looking at a deeper level of understanding of the crises, multiple crises, but multiple opportunities as well that we're looking at in the next, whatever, 5, 10, 15, 20 years. We're looking at the long term, but we're also able to see the, the positive vision. We have a vision, at least, that's really important to have a vision, to be able to see into the future and say, this is what we want to happen. Now let's get there. And I think the Green Party really is the only party that has that kind of vision and understanding.
How do we balance the need for infrastructure projects with protecting the environment?
Well, that's a really interesting question because I was involved in a community energy project, which involved putting hydropower on a weir locally, and that was opposed by a landowner next door to it and a few local people, not that many. We had lots of support, um, but the landowner opposed it. And one of their reasons was that it was going to be detrimental to their business. Um, I think the what we couldn't get around that problem effectively at the time, but I think in general, to gain community support, you just have to show people what the benefits are likely to be from any particular project. And also you have to, well, there are three different ways of doing it, I think. So you can either say, suppose you've got when you talk about infrastructure, I'm assuming you mean, clean energy type infrastructure. Would that be fair?
Any projects really. So I was also thinking of things that green councils might be involved in, like housing and
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah, you have to display what the benefits are. You have to actually explain what they are. You have to say this is part of our overall plan. We are going to be doing something that benefits our community, and you can potentially say in a local energy project, you can have some ownership over it, or we will direct the some of the benefits of this project to you. Um, I think in general, that's my answer. Basically keep on talking to people, keep on providing them with the good reasons for the infrastructure. I mean, I'm thinking about my mind immediately went to energy infrastructure, partly because I've got some background in that, and partly because I know there's been some controversy in some areas where you've got big energy infrastructure and a need to connect to the grid, and that grid connection has been controversial because it will seemingly involve lots of large pylons marching across the horizon, and that's obviously something that, as the Green Party in power, would be saying, well, we don't necessarily have to do it like that. That either we'll find the more technologically suitable way of doing it, or we'll distribute the energy differently. Whatever it is, I would like to think that we would have better solutions than just saying, well, I'm sorry, it's going to cost too much to give you what you want as a community.
The UK Supreme Court has ruled that for the purpose of the Equality Act 2010, the definition of sex is biological sex, not gender identity. What's your position on that?
I think that is a poor decision on a couple of scores. One, it does kind of indirectly or directly, perhaps even, attack transgender people and say that they cannot self-identify. And then secondly, it seems very impractical because it's setting up a position where people will need to, in some way, justify themselves in certain contexts. And that is obviously really impractical, intrusive, and just highly, it's just against all of our sense of fairness, I think. And the transgender people that I know, or non-binary people that I know, are obviously really horrified by it. And it's not as if there are millions and millions of transgender people in our country. So it's not exactly the issue has been blown up, I think, into a big one where actually we could be dealing with it in a much more compassionate way.
What do you say when people ask you how we should fund public services?
I'd probably turn it round the other way and say, well, we should be looking at this from this perspective. We need to provide adequate public services to meet the needs of everyone in this country and support all the people who are vulnerable, to provide the kind of society that we want. So therefore, we need to provide that funding, provide that investment. It shouldn't be a case that we have to say, where is the money coming from? That's very much based on a particular kind of economic policy that says we have to tax and spend. But Green Party's at the moment maybe making some revisions to its economic policy, but its basic thrust is that we need to look at what is necessary, what we need and want in our society, and provide that, and then provide the means to basically fill the coffers, I guess, to make sure we have revenue coming in. But it's just not as it's not like running a household. I think the economic arguments that we see so often in the media and in political debate are very limited, and they talk about our national economy as if it's a household. We have to tighten our belts and all of that kind of business. And that's just clearly not the case. That's a very limited analysis of how a national economy works. So yeah, that's my answer to that question, is that you look at what you need to provide, and then you find the funding and put the investment in to those areas.
Right. You've just won the MMT vote there.
Yeah. Well, MMT is a great analysis. It's not a philosophy, but it is a great analysis. Yeah.
You're the first person who didn't say wealth taxes instantly.
I
So
mean, that's part of the solution too. I mean, yes, of course, you have to tax, but I mean, how you tax, as the Green Party, we've got a different view of taxation as well. So land value tax is, much more, I think, better thought of than income tax. And I agree with that. I think income tax does hit people unfairly. Why should you be taxed on the work that you do? Why are we taxing labor and not taxing assets, wealth, and land ownership? I think that is fairness for me, but I can see how a system that we need to change to will not just happen overnight. And the debate has to be there first. The grounds have to be laid first before you can suddenly provide even a manifesto promise. And we have to have the debate in the public domain so that we can then move on to explaining and presenting our our policy ideas.
What do you think the UK's relationship to NATO should be?
Well, I think its current relationship is it's a very close one. I was reading the spending review paper. Not that I do this like I'm not reading spending review papers every second of every day, but I just did look at the recent one about the defense spending review, and so it's written. It's basically a speech by Keir Starmer, and there's I think in 15 pages there's about 188 references to NATO. So yeah, it's a big, there's a close relationship. We obviously are a key member. As things stand, the UK is a very key member of NATO. And given the aggression of Russia towards Ukraine and the fears of the Baltic states and Scandinavian states about what Russia will do next, I think we have no option at the moment. And it's quite right that we should be in NATO and we should continue to play a leading role. I also think that the UN needs to play a much larger part in international diplomacy and international conflict resolution, but that at the moment does not seem to be on the table as far as we can see from from discussions or news about what other countries are doing. But yeah, I'm not actually. I think we should be in NATO and we should be a key part of it because that's the only way to really shape it as it should be. But I'm not saying there's no problems with NATO. I mean, there's problems with every international institution, but at the moment, I think it's probably right that we maintain that position.
What's your feeling on electoral pacts and working with other organisations and candidates?
That's an interesting one because in Richmond, the Green Party had an electoral pact with the Liberal Democrats last council elections, and so I'm in favour of pacts where necessary and where it will be beneficial for the Green Party and for the local area. I think in our case in Richmond, I think having the Greens in the council chamber is just far, far better for the people of Richmond than having us sitting just sort of watching proceedings, because previously it was very much the case that you had Liberal Democrats and Conservatives, and it's been a bit of a seesawing um, council for probably the best part of 3 decades in the past until very recently. And that just means that you get that kind of inconsistency between um, elections, so that you've got one party comes in, does something, then the other party, does the reactionary thing and changes everything. And that's obviously no good for any kind of consistent policy on things like, well, particularly climate, sustainability, but affordable housing, social adult social services and social care. These are things that need mental health services, that they need consistency in provision. So the fact that we're there to just keep on keep those issues in the limelight and keep on reminding Liberal Democrats in this case that they've made promises and they need to keep them. I think that's a really useful way of having an alliance, of sort of alliance. It's not an alliance anymore. It was an electoral pact, but working together, collaborating where we need to collaborate is, I think, a really is absolutely essential for us.
Great. I hope you found the Liberal Democrats a bit more trustworthy than they were to 2017 voters.
Well, I mean, the thing about
2017, 2015.
yeah,
Mm.
the thing what they got the everything dumped on them, I think, in 2015 that the Tories had done, but they didn't help themselves by not being able to maintain their promise to students. And I think I've met a lot of people who were students at the time who said, I will never vote Lib Dem ever again because they raised tuition fees. Um, so yeah, I mean that was a tough period for them. I think that working alongside them, it's generally we can um, we can make a difference. We do generally say, like I just said, we remind them of what their manifesto promises were, what their corporate plan is, even what their policies are, what their strategies are. And just say, well, you did say this, right? So how are you going to do it? You've got to actually bring in certain things to make all of these promises happen. And yeah, I think working in that way, being challenging but not being part of the Punch and Judy circus, is just far better for residents, because they can, we're actually having a positive impact rather than just saying no to things or saying we oppose them. So I think in general, I'm in favour of pacts where they seem to be really useful and necessary. Um, that may not be that may not be the party line, however, moving forwards. So I would have to live with that, whatever's the democratic decision of the party.
How do you think we can better convey the urgency and impact of the climate crisis?
By being in government and being able to implement policies that are fair, that produce the kind of result that we want to see in climate terms and nature terms, while not seeming to undermine people's livelihoods, or seeming to put extra costs on their living expenses. I think the urgency and the story has already been told. We know, everyone knows that story. Even just starting this interview, when you said it's well, I said it's getting hotter, and you said, yeah, well, that's kind of why we're here. That's that's something that I do hear from people quite often. It's like the awareness of climate change is there already. It's just people are going, okay, well, what next? How do we actually do it? And sometimes it's a case of people feeling like they are having the costs put on them, which is the sort of reform narrative, or just saying, why do we have to be the responsible people? Why can't large corporations be held more accountable? And I totally agree. Yeah, why can't large corporations be held more accountable? So I think we have to we have to get ourselves in government, and then we can actually see, we can put into place the policies that are going to lead to a fair transition.
How would you, as deputy leader, support getting Greens off the ground in areas with little or no Green Party at the moment?
Well, I mean, I would be prepared to go and visit people, talk to local members, given the benefit of any experience that I've got in having been elected as a councillor, for instance, and all the campaigning that's required. I do a bit of that anyway in Kingston and Hounslow, which are two neighbouring boroughs in London and part of our London Southwest constituency in the GLA. So I've been doing a bit of, support, and, bring the guys from those local parties together, and we've given whatever kind of advice we can. Things like target to win. I know that's a later question, but it is a really useful tool, and we have been doing that, talking to them about it. So I would do something very similar in other local parties. I'll just go and visit them, talk to them, try and galvanize them as much as possible, find out what the problems are, bring that back to discuss it with decision makers in the party and advisors, and just get as much help for them as I could.
We don't have a whip system in the Green Party. How would you manage differences between your personal views and Green Party policy?
Well, I guess is talking about it is the first thing that
Mhm.
I would do. I do that anyway, and talk to, my colleagues, and other Green Party members. So that is the first point. That's where you start. start talking about it and whether or not you can accommodate your own view within Green Party policy, or whether occasionally, it depends how important it is. It would have to be a really serious issue for me to have any massive disagreement, and I'm not sure what would happen then, but I haven't found that yet with Green Party policy. So yeah, I'm not, I'm not expecting to find myself in sort of deep crisis. But if it happened, I would hope that I've got to the point of discussing it all, before it became a crisis.
How do we make a bigger impact with the media?
That's the biggest question you've asked, and I think, yeah, we've got to be able to start discussing the ideas that we have. We've got to put them in the public eye, and we've got to put them in such a way that they're not scaring people off as well. But how we do that is, yeah, there's a debate, I guess, around do you do you just say provocative things? Do you, start a bit of a controversy, or do you rely on the power of your arguments to win people over? I think tide is moving in our favor just because the political landscape has shifted, and now people are seeing us as more of a, valid alternative to, say, Labour, and that means that we should be getting more coverage anyway. I've noticed, actually, interestingly, the I was talking to Liberal Democrat councillors last week about, and they brought it up, without prompting, that they were really interested in our leadership contest. That it was kind of cutting through to them. So just having a really interesting leadership race is one way of getting more coverage.
What do you think of the Green Party electoral strategy known as Target to Win?
I think it's a really excellent strategy. It works. We know it works. And we've done it here, even though we did have a pact with the Lib Dems, we did use Target to Win anyway. And we can see the logic of it. And it's absolutely straightforward once you grasp it. So I do think it's a really excellent strategy. Um, of course, it's a really it starts from the basis that you don't have any councillors anywhere. That's the sort of the assumption is, if you don't have any, you need to target a particular ward, and then you expand from there. Once now we do have, what is it, 800 councillors altogether in the whole country. So now the target to win is a more of a, what is the next? It's the next step. It's target to expand, and well, that's equally valid, and has to be, yeah, has to be propagated, I think, throughout the party. I think some local parties we might have been a little bit resistant to it at first, but I think it's proven its worth, and I think every local party should do it. He says, like an advertising slogan.
What's your approach to people who disagree with you?
Um, I uh, I just tend to be quite gently. I just have a conversation with them, and I don't, uh, stridently push forward my views, but I just try to have a good, proper debate or conversation with them and see how it goes.
Which Green Party policy would you change?
The policy that we have on uh, online stuff, social media, is not very developed as far as I can see, and where we've seen this sort of massive potential for um, harm through both social media and some online activity as well, and also misinformation, disinformation through social media. I think it needs better regulation, and I think our policy probably needs to really talk about that and talk more about what kind of harm it's doing to vulnerable people, especially children, because children are so vulnerable. to this whole ecosystem of social media. And I don't think the party's quite come, I don't think the country has come to grips with that yet. And I don't think our party has got to grips with it yet. I mean, as a parent myself, even though my kids are grown up, when they were teenagers, that the social media era had started, and I could see, or I thought I could see that. Well, I could definitely see it wasn't being good. It wasn't good for them. But things have probably even developed since then, and now we can see just how vulnerable, especially young girls and women, to the kind of well, I don't even know what to call it really. It's a sort of horrible, the horror, the sort of trashy sort of horror that's online, and also the influence of the way that social media is used to be abusive. And I think that's something we really need to look at. I know in Australia they've brought in a new law to restrict social media accounts to under 16s, and I think I'm not sure if that is the policy change that I would like to see, but I'd like to see us look at it and see whether or not something like that, or something that has a similar kind of effect, and also shows that we care about this stuff, and that we can support parents. I mean, it's very difficult to be a parent right now.
The Green Party has a reputation for a lack of racial diversity. How do we attract non-white members and voters to the Green Party?
I think we have to ask non-white people what it is that they think is lacking in the Green Party. Why is it that they're not joining the Green Party? Um, I mean, I guess that is being done and has been done in the past as well, but I'm not sure what conclusions anyone came to. Obviously, you need role models. So wherever we have councillors who are not white, that they need to make themselves more prominent, and their local parties need to help them do that, and the central party obviously needs to help them become prominent enough so that they are more of the face of the Green Party, rather than that stereotype that you just mentioned of white middle class people. So yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one. I mean, if it doesn't happen, then it tends to be a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Oh, we don't have we don't have that much racial diversity. And so people go, oh, well, then I'm not joining. Yeah, it's not an easy question to deal with, but I think whatever the central party can do to support existing councillors, and to promote them so that they become role models, that can only be for the good.
How can we assure disabled people that the Green Party is listening to them?
I think this is actually quite an interesting question, because I think that shows how little Green Party policies, or even our manifesto last year, is known. Because obviously our manifesto talked about um, increasing support for disabled people, and basically being like the supportive party, as well as adult social care as well. So, it's like we should be the go-to party for a disabled person to say, well, they want to maintain our benefits. They want to, improve the situation. They want to make, more moves towards equality. They're the people for us. So yeah, that is what again, I guess we need to go further in terms of trying to put that message across through the media and through all of the um, disabled charities and organisations that support disabled people. I mean, here in Richmond, I know that there's a local charity that I've been to their meetings. I've talked to them about what's going on, and it's very practical what disabled people have difficulties with. It's the most practical stuff. But we're talking about the whole sort of that whole area of support for disabled people, and making sure that they can get access to employment and training, and make sure that they have decent housing, and that it's well maintained, and that they have support. So yeah, I think we should be the go-to party.
How important is social class in politics?
We still live in a class-ridden society, and it starts with our education system. So class, I guess you can say that yes, class is very important in politics, in that sense that people are already aware that there is a class system and that they're part of it. In terms of tribal politics, yeah, I think class does play its part, and you can see how, say, working class people, some have moved away from Labour towards Reform, so that seems to be a class element there, and so that's something we have to be aware of, and we've got to do something about it and say to those people, no, we're the party for you too. We can see the positive vision of the future rather than being the reactionary guys who come in and say what's wrong and how to stop things and how to prevent stuff from happening. We're not the cynics, we're the optimists with a positive vision.
What other issues are important to you?
Culture, culture, media, arts. The arts are really important to me. So I'm a singer-songwriter, very kind of much on the side, not not as a main thing, as a bit of a hobby. So arts are really important. I used to be involved in theatre. It's such a key part of who we are as well. British people are renowned for their cultural excellence and work, and that's what we want to maintain and give support to.
Why do you think you should be deputy leader, and what would you do if you're elected?
I feel I've got a balanced perspective, so I can see different points of view. I can understand that. I can, hold them at the same time and be able to reconcile people, because that is essentially what the role probably is more about. It's about holding that integrity of the party together. So yes, we all have different views. Like we're all, amazing individuals in the Green Party. Like you said, there are people who are very cultural, and we've all got that individuality, but we need to be still focused on the integrity of the Green Party and moving it forwards to become electable and becoming elected. So I think I bring that kind of personal people skill to the table, and that's what I would be using to both inspire, promote, help local parties, and also hold that integrity together at an upper level of the party.